the CentreSteer podcast, a podcast by, for, and about Land Rover owners.
Welcome to the CentreSteer podcast number 147 for June of 2025. CentreSteer is a monthly podcast for Land Rover enthusiasts, hobbyists, and owners around the world. I'm John Kostic. Joining me are fellow owners and enthusiasts, Harold and Dixon. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Hey.
Greetings.
Morgan is on his annual camping leave, so he's not joining us this month, so we can talk about him.
Dipping paddle into the lake from his canoe.
Our guests this month are Rick Simmonds and Austin Germain of the Green Oval Guild.
The GOG.
The Ohio Land Rover Club, Ohio and here in the United States. The GOG is celebrating their 20th anniversary this year. Rick and Austin tell us about the start of the GOG and the fabled Wilds events. Rick, I found this very interesting. Rick has only ever owned one Land Rover, while Austin owns several dealerships.
So on average, they're about right.
So stay tuned to hear about the GOG and more after the news. And thanks to our Patreon and Buy Me a Tea subscribers for your support. You too can support the podcast through Patreon, Buy Me a Tea, and you can even sport a t-shirt or a sticker. Patreon supporters receive bonus content, including 10 questions, our Land Rover-oriented question and answer lightning round. I know I'm behind on getting Jenna and Liza's posted. I had it on my calendar, and I just didn't get to it. So hopefully by the time you're listening to the podcast, I will have Jenna and Liza's 10 questions posted to Patreon.
Losing your points by not being there on time.
Shout out to the one and only Bob Steele. He sent us some brown water, and he said, brown water all around, John, Harold, Morgan, and Dixon, regardless of the hyphenations. Thank you for having Jenna and Liza on CentreSteer. They are Land Rover enthusiasts who make our community so special. Oh, the stories. Who knows? They might just put their Defender on the podium at the Rebel in October. Imagine. So thanks, Bob. Really do appreciate it, and your comments are spot on.
Keeping the barony alive, he is.
And now it's time for the North American Events Club calendar, or just the North American Events calendar, including the clubs, with Dixon.
Good day. For this entry, we do not have anything like the Rover Ball, which was a moving event that went from New York City to California.
Successfully?
We'll have to have a discussion on Rover Ball. It was actually very interesting. A Freelander did make it across the country, and I do note, very sadly, there were no 80 inches along with them, though that probably would have quadrupled the amount of time it would have taken.
The big question is, did the Freelanders make it back?
That would be for the discussion. Actually, moving forward, there are a number of stationary events. The first one that we know of is the Southern California Rover Club doing their Colorado Great Divide, mission from July 19th to 25th in Ouray, Colorado. They bill it as a bucket list expedition for enthusiasts and such, where they're going through lots of mountain passes and breathtaking scenery, 4x4 resume trails and such, looking at mines and everything from mines to wildflowers and such. If you're interested in that one, their website has a ton of information as well as their Facebook feed. The website's socalroverclub.org. The next one up is the 11th annual. That's all the name is. It is the Northeast Land Rover Club's event that runs from July 24th to 27 in the Anthracite Outdoor Adventure Area in Pennsylvania. There are thousands of acres of property. They say there's everything from easy scenic green laning to extreme rock crawling available. They are inviting everyone from brand new Defenders to old series or lifted discos to come along. If you're interested, their Facebook feed has a fair amount of information on this. Again, that's the Northeast Land Rover Club, NELRC. Moving on, the 31st to August 3rd is the Land Rover Muddy Chef Challenge. This is an event that's been going on since 2008 near Stowe, Vermont. It's started with a handful of Land Rover aficionados that got together where they decided they were going to combine off-roading with gourmet cooking challenges. It is grown actually to be a fairly large event and has all sorts of other things in it with competitions from everything from safari style campsites to off-road driving. And they talk up things even including fly fishing and sport clay shooting. Information can be found on their website, muddychef.com, or again on Facebook. Next up, the Cuyahoga Club is running an event called the Ohio Land Rover Summer Camp, August 15th to 16th at the Southington Off-Road Park. It's a private event for the club, but anyone can be a member of the club. Hit their website at cvlrc.net, or they have their own Facebook group and so on for that. A non-club but open event is going to be the Maine Misfits and Rover Bits in Green, Maine. This is a summertime Maine event that has everything from used parts to rustic camping and lots of off-roading on 200 acres of trails and such. I've not been to it, but I've heard that it's actually quite an interesting event to go to. Information there on the usual sources.
How close is that to the Winter Romp?
It is going to be closer to Portland than to the Winter Romp. It is in southwestern, I guess you call it southwestern Maine, towards the New Hampshire border. I can visualize it on a map, but green with an E, Maine. Just aim your ways at, I think it's on Route 202 in Green. After that, the next event in August, is from the 22nd to the 24th, is the ever famous birthday party, an event that's been running since 1984. So I guess this is the 41st event for a club that's actually 51 years old. It is near 12 miles from Silver Lake Provincial Park in Ontario in the Lanark Highlands. It is always a very interesting event and taking place at a campground with all of the trails and everything else around there. Information on that event can be found on ovlr.ca or the usual spots on Facebook. And after that, we have a pair of events that are not Land Rover oriented, though quite large, for British cars. On the 21st of September, there's British Car Day in Bronte Provincial Park in Oakville, just west of Toronto. It is the largest one-day British car show on the continent. There'll be over 1,000 British cars there.
How many under their own power? Bump.
I think just about all of them. They got to get there. I've been to it and haven't really seen trailers.
Oh, okay. That's some good intel.
Though one where they don't necessarily get there under their own power at the same time, so you have to make a choice, is the British invasion in Stowe, Vermont, which is a couple-day event that's, albeit smaller, but a very interesting British car show down there. And I guess I'll conclude with the 37th Solihull Society National Rally in Moab, September 22nd to 27th. It's been, again, around since 1989. It is one of the older events. It alternates back and forth between locations, and this year is in Moab. Information on that is either their website or Facebook. And that is the roundup, though I think I missed one. Well, a very important one that's British car oriented.
You missed a very important one. Yes, it's the I'll step in and handle it for you, Dixon.
Oh, thank you.
It's International Car Show, also known as British Car Show, at the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix, and that takes place on Saturday, July 19th. I didn't know they started at 9:30, Harold. I never knew there was a time.
I think that's when they start letting the cars in, and they do have to come in under their own power, but they tell you that every car needs to be in place by, I think, 11 or 12 or something like that. But yeah, typically they start filtering in at 9:30. Unless it's raining, then they make everybody sit out on the street, because it's not a problem for us, mind you, but everyone else can't make the hill up the grass.
We'll be making a showing this year. They had moved the weekend last year, and we couldn't make a good showing. This year, we're trying to make a good showing, the we being the Fort Pitt Land Rover Group. So this is one of the activities that we still do, keeping the club going. This is in Oakland, part of Pittsburgh. It takes place on a golf course, and around that is vintage racing. takes place at Shenley Park.
And to be clear, the International Car Show is a function of this Grand Prix, and there's, as the name would imply, all sorts of brands there. But then within that show is the show within the show, which is the British Car Day, which is sponsored by the Western Pennsylvania Triumph Association.
And as I always like to say about that volume of cars that come out, it's amazing. In particular, the Jaguars that come out. They're just, you never see the cars at all until on British Car Day. Boom, they show up there.
Yeah, I see some of the Jags. It's like the Rollers and Bentleys that I don't see on a day-to-day basis, and a lot of low tie as well.
If you want to participate as a Land Rover, we recommend that you do register so they make sure they have space for us. That's really the only reason to have people register, so that they rope off enough space for the Rovers. And I had someone new to our club, Harold, ask about what goes on at the Grand Prix. And it was like, the Rovers, we hang by our trucks. All the other cars, they park them and they go into the woods or they go back home.
I saw that comment. That person may be new to the club and new to you, but he's a client of mine for a few years now.
Oh,
so
nice.
yeah, I've been encouraging to try to come out and show his truck. He's put enough money into it. He should show it off.
What's he driving?
It's a 96 110 station wagon.
Oh, sweet.
It's Alpine white, which as I don't care for, but so he had the truck itself was in pretty good shape, but he put a lot of money into fixing it up. We put all new doors on it and painted those to match. And our paint guy did a really good job matching the colors, and some other parts that needed to be replaced. I ended up just swapping him with the Alpine white parts off of my truck with a little buffing. You'd never know that these two trucks spent their first 25 years in parts of the planet that could not be farther apart, only to be reunited in my shop, and they look identical.
Bit of a non sequitur, actually. Does your summer party replace the Roadster Factory's summer party? Or does that still go on?
Not intentionally, but since the Roadster Factory burned to the ground, I guess it does. They used to sponsor this event heavily, but yeah, it's a sad story about the Roadster Factory. We're still waiting to see if they say they're coming back, but the question is to what extent. I have my doubts that it'll be as glorious as it once was.
Well, they lost so much stuff.
Yeah, they lost everything.
And one other thing we should mention, Dixon, is the Mid-Atlantic Rally. It's the 50th anniversary of Rover Owners of Virginia, and they're holding the Mid-Atlantic Rally. So it's a week earlier this year?
It's a week earlier this year.
Such that you must make a decision whether you want to go to the National Rally or to the Mid-Atlantic Rally, because you cannot do both.
That is very true.
Not without current technology, we cannot.
Not in a Land Rover at those speeds.
That's true. That's true.
Unless you have one stationed at each end of the country and you can fly in your jet.
Yeah, that takes place September 25th to 28th in Arvonia, Virginia. It is a NARC sponsored, supported event this year. The podcast will be there in some fashion. They have made a lot of changes and updates and improvements to the field, to the area, to the event space. So they can
venue formerly known as Pearl's Pond.
They can accommodate a lot more folks this year, especially for camping. They've made some improvements again for opening up the camping. So that area that's that kind of in that pine area, as soon as you come in the past, there everyone was cramped together in that pine area, pine trees. That's vastly expanded for camping this year.
Which is a good thing because the event used to sell out in 21 minutes.
Actually, for the listeners, registration is open at roav.org, and they should go and get their name down and do it before they do whatever limitations they may have.
We'll wait.
There's another limitation to consider that you would, if you think you're going to go, that is for the dinner, because they have separated the Saturday dinner from regular registration. It's a separate fee this year. And that is definitely limited. There's only so many folks they can handle for the dinner, whereas they can handle a lot more to camp. But if you want to join on the dinner on Saturday, definitely register as soon as possible. And we should also mention about Rover Ball. Rover Ball happened, and it was generally successful. I was hoping to go from New York and drive the LR3 and get a stop at Akron. Unfortunately, the LR3 developed a problem, and the
most reliable Land Rover ever.
That's what they say, apparently, except for this time. Rear control.
Except when you need it.
Yeah, rear control arms are needing to be replaced. It made sense to just join them in Akron because I wasn't going to keep up with them doing 70 miles an hour or so in the 110. I did drive up the 110, met up with them, and
it would have been a better trip than in the 109 trying to keep up with
That's true. That's definitely, I'd still be in New York City.
That extra inch makes a huge difference.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. If you follow along either on the CentreSteer Instagram or even on the Anarch Instagram, we reposted all of Justin's postings from that, and they successfully made it. And I'm sure Justin's working on a major video to push out about it.
Did both Freelanders make it?
No. I did get to see Joe from Lost Cause Ranch in Akron. He was driving his Freelander, so it made it that far. And then the next day I got a text that his Freelander had died. And thankfully it was close to another shop, and they lent him a D90. So he then continued the journey in a D90.
The nice thing is it died between Akron and his home in Iowa, as opposed to getting like way out to Nevada somewhere and crapping out.
The other Freelander had engine troubles in Arizona, but did make it. I understand it's going to get shipped back. And I understand also that it will be coming down to the MAR.
That's correct. There is
under its own power?
That's yet to be determined.
Yes, that's
possibly.
a TBD there, Harold. TBD on that one. Yeah, it sounded like it was I thought it was in the Rockies where it was developing problems because of the elevation, and seemed like it wasn't getting enough air. That was my impression.
Idea offhand.
They could develop those problems in the Rockies and then roll downhill to Arizona.
But they did eventually made it to the Portofino Hotel, and there you go. So that was the Rover Ball. Thanks to Justin for doing Rover Ball and helping to raise money for Anarch. We raised, last I looked, it was almost $2,300 raised for Anarch. And we also should mention Dix and I are on as you guys know, on the Anarch board. And this past month, in the Anarch board meeting, we voted to have an Land Rover 80th celebration. That'll take place in 2028. We just agreed to have a celebration. Exactly when, exactly where, and the details, that's all to be determined. We just said, yes, we want to have one, and we are going to start planning now for 2028 because you really need to start doing the planning as early as possible.
Oh, these are huge events, and there's lots of moving parts, and what goes on behind the scenes to make any of these events come off is tremendous. Requires a lot of volunteers and a lot of things, and the larger the event, the more complicated it gets.
And each time you do one, you have to pick from a ever shrinking pool of willing volunteers because the previous ones have burned out.
It will take place in 2028. We're probably going to try to target the June time frame again. Will it be a Greek Peak? Will it not be a Greek Peak? Again, to TBD, to be determined. But we'll
stay tuned.
Exactly. So just mark your calendars now, and you now have 3 years to get your Rover ready. We're not gonna start the countdown just yet. We need a date, and then we'll start reminding you.
Or buy another one and get that one ready.
All right, those are events. Anything else we missed, Dixon?
Nope, that's about everything for now. If you want to see more about it, go to the anarch.club website and click on events, and there's another way to go and find out more about all of these things. And I finally add, if you're a club out there and you want your event to be popularized, drop us a line at the CentreSteer podcast.
All right, now it's time for the news. First up, JLR warns U.S. tariffs will hit profit margins. JLR has downgraded its profit predictions for the year as it warned of the impact of President Trump's tariffs and heightened global uncertainty. JLR, which is owned by Tata, said it expected margins on underlying profits of between 5% and 7% this financial year. The manufacturer had previously pointed towards 10% for the year, while it posted its underlying profit margin of 8.5% for the year to March. In April, the UK's largest employer in the automotive sector halted all shipments to the U.S. after the Trump administration's imposed an additional 25% tariff on car imports, but restarted in May. The move followed the UK reaching an agreement to export 100,000 cars a year to the U.S. at a reduced 10% tariff.
So those 100,000 car quota for the reduced tariff, are they apportioning those by manufacturer?
That is unclear, because in another article I saw, it did mention that $100,000 or 100,000 car mark, and so this one says that the automaker also noted it remained in discussions with the U.S. and UK government concerning the trade agreement signed in May, which permits the UK to export up to 100,000 vehicles annually to the U.S. at a reduced 10% tariff, significantly lower than the 25% rate applied to other countries. So it sounds to me like
your Morgans can still get here.
Yes, but it sounds like they're going to probably hand them out in some fashion. It doesn't sound like they figured out how they're going to.
I hate to think it's first come, first serve. I would hope they would apportion it somehow, much like they were doing with the steel allocations in 1948.
But how much British automotives will be coming over here now besides something like JLR, Aston Martin, Morgan? We used to get Vauxhall, we used to get Ford Cortinas, but I don't know if they are actually, any of that other manufacturing is actually coming over here. I would expect, stand to be corrected, that.
What about Mini Coopers? Aren't they made?
Are they made in the UK, or they're making
some
them somewhere else?
Made at the old MG Oxford plant.
Okay, that'll make an interesting discussion between BMW and JLR.
And also upcoming Jaguars, they're going to restart.
And then the question comes up with the new Defenders that are made in Slovakia. Is that a British export or is that a Slovakian export?
That would be Slovakian.
So then it would not qualify for the 10%.
No.
Huh.
Following on from the tariff discussion, we did hear from Mark Latourneau over at Rovers North, and it was okay to share this information with our listeners. We discussed, I think, 2 podcasts ago about Rovers North maybe pausing some of its imports or shipments and how it was responding to the tariffs. This is from Mark Latourneau, and thanks, Mark, for sending this over.
And thanks for listening, Mark.
Mark said, I wanted to let you know that Rovers North is not pausing any container shipments. We are currently moving an average of 2 40-foot ocean containers and 3 VOR air shipments each week. At present, Rovers North is subject to the following stackable tariffs: a 10% UK tariff, 25% steel and aluminum tariff, and a 120% Chinese tariff. All Chinese parts are subject to the earlier Chinese tariff and are very based on the HTS from 7% to 25%. So it sounds like whatever the tariffs are in place going on there. Back to Mark here. Fortunately, we have been actively moving away from Chinese parts for the last 5 years. However, we do have some exposure we can't avoid. Beginning tomorrow, and this was again back in early May, the portion of tariffs we cannot absorb is passed directly to consumers without any additional markup. We are doing our best to serve our customers base and survive this massive disruption to our business. We are extremely grateful to the support we are receiving from our customers and remain committed to offering them our best service. As policy, we do not share our logistics information. However, I felt it important to share this with you in order to dispel any future rumors about our service. Thank you and keep well. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, always good to get clarification. So thanks for that.
And thanks for listening. All right. Next in the news, there was a fire at the Birmingham plant, JLR's Birmingham plant. No one got hurt. Just a little bit of info, so I thought it was worth mentioning. 8 fire engines were called out on June 24th to the building on Chester Road. Eyewitnesses said the smoke could be seen for miles. And the West Midlands Fire Service confirmed the blaze was at a vehicle manufacturing plant. That they deployed about 50 firefighters, 8 engines, and a hydraulic aerial platform. I assume that to be helicopter or maybe a drone. The fire was extinguished shortly after 9:30 in the morning. JLR has confirmed that no one was injured in the fire. Cause is unknown.
They make EVs there?
I wasn't sure. They didn't say what was made there. And next, in-wheel motor technology comes to classic Land Rover Defender restorations. You know, I like following this stuff. Technology company Bideo has announced a partnership with Monarch Defender, a Land Rover specialist, restoration specialist, to offer electric conversions to classic Defenders to U.S. customers starting later this year. The collaboration will use Bideo's in-wheel motor technology to convert classic Land Rovers to electric power. The system eliminates traditional drivetrains while maintaining the vehicle's original weight, according to the companies. Bideo launched its Reborn Electric Icons program in 2024, creating what it describes as the first electric classic Land Rover Defender using in-wheel motors. The conversion includes a 75 kilowatt-hour battery with an estimated WLTP range of 247 kilometers, which is 153 miles. Monarch Defender becomes the first classic Defender restoration company to offer in-wheel motor technology. In-wheel motors in this application especially have huge weight, space, and off-road capability gains versus other electrification systems on the market. The in-wheel motor system places electric motors directly in the wheels, eliminating the need for traditional drivetrain components like differentials and drive shafts. This approach preserves interior and cargo space while reducing mechanical complexity.
They would have to replace the entire axle assembly then, because of course the Rover is a live axle situation, and that of course changes. They'd have to add suspension bits and something to carry the wheels, but that sounds like a lot of engineering. It's cool, but the question at that point is whether they're able to do independent suspension or whether they would keep with the solid axle.
They could go either way, actually.
Could, you'd think.
It'd be fascinating to see this working, and how big, how large, and what an in-wheel motor is actually going to be compared to the huge traditional electric motor that you'll use as opposed to a 2 1/4 or something.
And the question, they keep saying it's in the wheel, but is it really in the wheel or is it in the wheel hub? Because the hub motor is a more traditional method. The in the wheel thing is really cutting edge technology.
Devil's in the details.
Yeah.
But very interesting.
Yeah. And it'd be interesting to watch, see how it fleshes out. The whole idea of putting a motor at each wheel gives you lots of interesting things you can do off-road with the all-wheel drive.
Oh, yes.
And next is the 2026 Land Rover Discovery Sport. And Autoblog goes on to say, still has one major flaw. Although it has aged gracefully, the Land Rover Discovery Sport has been around in much the same form since 2014. Which is a long time for the same generation of a single model. It was facelifted in 2020.
Mind you, it has a ways to go before it catches up with the Range Rover Classic in terms of age of one model.
Fair, good point.
2014 to date, it actually even beats out the series vehicles in terms of their design changes. I think the longest is 58 to about 67 with the Series 2 early 2A with the headlights inboard before they went to the wings. That's quite something that has lasted that long.
And then for 2026 model year, another round of updates has been applied to the Disco Sport, headlined by a new landmark edition. And one of the first additions you'll notice is the mountain range logo on this model, something first introduced on the 89 Discovery. It has been seen on the aluminum tread plates and in the puddle lights of the 2026 Disco Sport. That's it. They do there's a panoramic roof. There's the dual zone climate. I think there's a contrasting roof now, but that's pretty much it. And then here's the best part. The Landmark Edition is the only Discovery Sport trim for 2026, replacing both the S and a Dynamic S.
So what's the one major flaw that they said in the headline?
It was the engine. Was that it was underpowered, continues to be underpowered.
I thought maybe its one major flaw was that it was a Discovery and it's not selling.
It was the best-selling Land Rover for a couple of years.
Well, yeah, it outsold the actual Discovery, I think.
And I think up until the Defender came out, I think best-selling, yeah.
The Defender is really the death knell of the entire Disco family, I think.
You are not wrong. Moving on, speaking of the Defender, the 2026 Defender is new and is out. Got some more information about it here. First up, Car and Driver Land Rover has only provided details about the newest Europe market Defender so far, but if the US spec truck receives the same update, it will look a bit different for the 2026 model year. Most models get a new front and rear bumpers, new textured pattern for the hood inserts and side vents. Standard gloss black grille bar now occupies the space between the Defender's updated headlights. The taillights are now flush with the body instead of slightly concave. 2 fresh exterior colors are on offer, including Barasco Silver, Woolstone Green, and there's a new 22-inch 7-spoke wheel design. Updates in the Defender cabin include a 13.1-inch infotainment system, repositioned gear shifter, revised center console design, new adaptive off-road cruise control, allows the Defender to automatically modulate throttle input over rough terrain. Okay, I have to stop. But why? Why? If you're going off-road, you're supposed to be challenging yourself in the vehicle. If you're going to let the vehicle just do it itself, what's the point?
That's where we've been going ever since the series vehicles.
Yep, that's fine. Let's move on. It'll take up hours on the podcast if we go down there. A driver attention monitor gives an audible alert if the driver's gaze wanders from the road. They've added this camera looking at the driver. The 130 can now be optioned with an integrated air compressor. The price of the Defender is expected to start around $60,000 and go up to $155,000 depending on price and trim. And they have a graphic of this, so if you're looking to buy one, want to see where the prices are, and these are all estimated for 2026 in the US. The S is $60,000 and the Octa is the $155,000.
Unless you want the Edition 1 Octa, which is even more.
Yeah, I think it's in the next story that talks about that. And the sweet spot here, that at least according to Car and Driver, is the 110X Dynamic SE for $75,000.
I haven't looked at your sweet spot, but when you look at the Octa and the price in the United States and you price the same thing in Canada, you actually save $17,000 buying it in Canada over the United States.
You could buy it in Canada and then bring it across the border and not have to pay that additional tariff.
But it's already there. That's a very interesting question. There'd be the 2.5% that you're going to have to pay, but it'd be interesting to see what the logistics of it are.
Depending on what the tariff is on Canadian imports this week, I should say.
That is very true.
And there's another article here from Auto Evolution that gives us some costs over in the UK and in Australia. The only piece of the puzzle is missing was the Land Rover update. Unfortunately, the British automaker hasn't announced US specifications for the Defender, although Car and Driver has that estimate. But the UK and Australia right-hand drive markets, they do have some numbers here. At home in the UK, it will start from £57,000 on the road, which is equivalent to around $78,000, but it doesn't say which version. So the online configure reveals it's the Defender D90, the D250 mild hybrid diesel. And I just wanted to read mild hybrid diesel because I think that sounds really cool.
Anytime you hear hybrid and diesel together in the same sentence, you're onto a good thing that most people don't recognize.
Meanwhile, in the land down under, it's a bit cheaper, priced from 111,000 Australian dollars drive away in New South Wales, and their base model is the same as the Defender 90 D250. However, these prices are much higher than the manufacturer's suggested retail price for the current Defender in the US, and we just talked about those numbers. There's some pricing around the world, certain markets anyways, for the new Defender. Next up is the Fast Lane. They did a video on the new Octa. Thanks to Lucky 8, Justin Lucky 8, I got to drive one for a bit. It's really cool. And my one-word review of that was bonkers. The one-word review from the Fast Lane is nuts. The Land Rover Defender Octa is nuts. As a 4x4 that can out-accelerate a Mustang. And they have a video. The reason I wanted to bring this up is that they have some details about it that I don't think had previously discussed. So this is a Defender Octa. It has the D6 dynamic suspension, hydraulically interlinked dampeners, adjustable air springs. Essentially, the system offers a greater wheel articulation, even with the Defender having fully independent suspension instead of solid axles at either end. The setup also eliminates body pitch and roll on the road. I can attest to that. You can make better use of the Octa's available power. And powerhouse it is. This is the most powerful Land Rover to date with its BMW-sourced 4.4-liter twin turbocharged V8 kicking out 626 horsepower, 590 pound-feet of torque in launch mode, 553 in other occasions. That's almost as much as a Lamborghini Urus S, and nearly as dynamic a result. The Land Rover Defender, this is no Range Rover Sport SVR, remember, can make 0 to 60 3.8 seconds. Yeah, if you head over to the Defender build page, you can immediately spot the prices you'll pay for this. And in fact, the Octa starts off at $153,625, including destination. That's nearly $40,000 more than the standard 5-liter supercharged Defender V8. And even more exclusive, the Octa Edition 1, starting at, you remember, Harold?
169.
You are spot on. You only missed it by $425. It's $169,425.
That's lunch on the way home.
That's your fuel costs
for the first tank.
So that's the Defender Octa. I say bonkers, and the fast lane says nuts. I think the big news, as we see it, I think for this month, is Land Rover has announced a new Defender 110 Trophy Edition, and more interestingly, a competition for it to conquer. This is a Car and Driver article. One of Car and Driver's own, having narrowly avoided death from all angles behind the wheel of a Land Rover Discovery TDI during the 1993 Camel Trophy in Borneo, we can attest that the British marque and its vehicles know how to take adventure to the ragged edge. While the notoriously rigorous Camel Trophy and subsequent G4 Challenge are no more, Land Rover is introducing a new Defender Trophy International Adventure Series for 2026 and a special Defender 110 Trophy Edition model to go with it. The new Defender 110 Trophy Edition will serve as a competition's off-road weapon of choice, fitted with celebratory styling elements and expedition-ready parts. The special edition model is offered in 2 colors: deep sand-glow yellow or Kenswick green, with the former recalling a staple hue of historic Camel Trophy vehicles and the latter celebrating the UK's lush greenery. Exclusive trophy decals will adorn its gloss black hood, C-pillars, and rear tailgate. On the inside, ebony Windsor leather seats preserve some luxury in the cabin. Apart from unique colors and decals, most of the Camel Trophy external modifications are already available on the standard 4-door Defender via the $55,400 Explorer Pack. But they'll put to good use during the the Defender Trophy. See, I'm doing it already. To reduce underbody threats, it comes with a front undershield, rear scuff plate, and wheel arch protections. Gloss black 20-inch wheels fitted with all-terrain tires should also make quick work of iffy topography, and a raised air intake is meant to filter out airborne dust. Since gear storage is always a critical aspect of lengthy safaris, the Trophy Edition features a large roof rack, side-mounted gear carrier, and deployable roof ladder to reach objects overhead. The Trophy Edition is available to order now and priced at an equivalent of about $121,000. And then going on, this article talks about final will be in Africa in 2026. So ultimately, the Discovery Trophy, I think there's a typo in this article, Car and Driver. You say Discovery Trophy is meant, but it should probably be Defender Trophy. So ultimately, the Defender Trophy is meant to put the new special edition model to the test, but contestants from more than 50 countries will initially duke it out under the regional level before moving on to a rigorous global final in Africa. Land Rover hasn't said what the exact hurdles will be, only the contestants will face, quote, driving challenges, ingenuity challenges, and physical challenges, unquote. The African final will be hosted in the fall of 2026 by Tusk, the Africa Wildlife Conservation Group, with the team's progress to be shared online. After completing the adventure, Land Rover says the winner will get the opportunity to leave a positive legacy with the people and places touched by Defender Trophy. If you're in a participating country, at least 23 years old, can swim 50 meters, can drive internationally, and speak fluent English, your chance to get dirty is coming.
I think I only meet a couple of those qualifications, to be honest with you.
I'm curious to know why they're renaming the Camel Trophy Discovery Trophy. It's all marketing and such like that. And, you know, the relationship with the cigarette company of old. But the Camel Trophy is a globally known branding and name, and you're just tossing it away to make a new one.
And not only that, but it seems like they did a bodge job on the color. That's not sand glow yellow. It's a cool color, but it seems like it's like banana sand or something. It's too banana yellow mixed in with the sand glow. And if they really want to tie that identity visually, they need the color.
I wonder if the reason that they didn't use Camel Trophy is they don't own the name.
They don't own the Camel name, definitely. But again, the color, I don't think I think that Land Rover does own. I mean, they can't call it Camel Trophy, no, because of the cigarette part of it.
The legacy, yes, but Camel Trophy, you could call it the Elephant Trophy, and no one is going to go and complain about it. It's a matter of usage.
Well, why they're calling it the Defender Trophy.
Yeah. They want to really boost the Defender brand, but they could look to their current partner and call it the Tusk Trophy.
Camel Trophy had everything from series to discoveries to Range Rovers and everything in it.
And even a Freelander or two.
Yeah. And by having a Defender Trophy, you're not going to have your Range Rover or discoveries in this.
Again, so House of Brands.
Yeah.
I think you've answered your own question. It's the fact that they have this House of Brands. This is the lane for the Defender, and this is what the Defenders do.
So then the question is, if typos and slips of the tongue aside, maybe they'll have a Discovery Trophy also?
Could be. Hey,
which then opens the door down the road to have Discovery versus Defender for the king of the JLRs.
Another article went in a little more detail on these Steelies, and it says here, if you want to lean into the
non-Steely Steelies.
Yes, that's exactly what it boils down to. If you want to lean into the former aspects of the dual personalities, the Defender 110 trophy, the trophy in question is probably the Camel. Okay, let me skip ahead.
I remember in the good old days, we used to have steel wheels that were made to look like alloy wheels, and now we've gone the other direction.
Those new gloss black wheels may look like Steelies, but they're actually alloys merely designed to look like them. At 20 inches, though, they're professionally small by modern SUV standards and come wrapped in standard all-terrain rubber. They look the part, but I guess they're alloys wrapped. And we'll have a link to several stories, and the last one here is stall pictures. And some of them look real, but they look like they're photoshopped or maybe some AI going on. But if you want to see all the two colors, the yellow and the green, the Cheswick green and the Sandglow yellow that they're using, go ahead and check those photos out. They did a nice job.
I like that Keswick green, definitely. But
yeah.
I'm not sure how well that ties to the trophy challenge was all about that Sandglow. That one picture that I found rather amusing was there was one in there where there was a guy all dressed in khakis running away from his vehicle carrying a bucket full of detailing supplies.
Yes. That was weird.
What? How does that figure into the competition?
That was just, and there's a helicopter flying on over him and
airlifting parts, I guess.
There it is. There's it does. You're right. It does look like it's cleaning equipment. Yeah.
Maybe that's one of the new sub competitions.
How quickly can you detail someone else's stuff?
This does bring up one concern, though. These are not taken by Nick Dimbleby. I'd like to register a complaint with Land Rover. Why is Nick Dimbleby not taking these photos? And if you want to participate, there is a page for this Land Rover has put up on their website. I think it's landrover.com/Defender Trophy, if I remember the link correctly, but I already have the page up here. They have a little bit of video about it, but it boils down to the three things on the journey here. You have national qualifiers, you have 3 epic stages, chance to make a real difference. So they detail some of the details there, which we already read to you in the story. But if you are interested, go sign up. There's a thing here, choose the country. There's a list of countries that you can select from, a bunch around the world.
Presumably you have to select your country, the one you are residing in and or a citizen of.
If you're in the U.S., it'll take you to LandRoverUSA.com. I just like making reference to the fact that they've not changed their URLs. They're still using.
Yeah. So much for the House of Brands business.
Yes. It's all under one. Maybe, I guess what Jerry doesn't know. So there's the Defender trophies coming up. I'm sure we'll continue to slip and call it the Camel Trophy just because it's natural.
Because we should.
Yes, there's some sort of trophy competition coming back, which I think is the headline here, and I think that's a good thing. And if anyone is going to participate, let us know. The podcast wants to follow your journey. And next, Car Buzz put out an article called Cheap But Worth the Risk? This epic off-roader can be problematic, but at least it's cheap. And this is around buying a used LR4, Disco 4 model. And I bring this up and is lately in here, especially on the podcast, I picked up an LR3 and others. You have noticed it in the community. There's been a lot of folks looking at LR3s and LR4s. And so if you're thinking about buying one, this seems to be a good article to tell you what to expect. I'll read a little bit of it. but you can go out and check the article for yourself. The Land Rover LR4, produced from 09 to 16, making up the second half of the SUV's third generation, was intended to be a more reliable version of the iconic Discovery, with the automaker's engineers working to address known issues with the LR3, like suspension failure and fluid leaks. When they wound up with was a Land Rover that still has suspension issues and potential fluid leaks, among other problems. But with the Kelley Blue Book pricing starting as low as $7,700, we can't exactly blame anyone who wants to pick up a used LR4 for weekends on the trail. Heck, buy a luxury off-roader for cheap and driving it like you stole it sounds like a good time, just as long as you've got a plan for getting out of the woods should the thing fail you on 30 miles away from civilization. Here's what you need to know before taking the risk. And that's what this article goes on to talk about. There's what can go wrong. They've got a list of general issues that come up, like air conditioning, refrigerant line replacement, hose radiator replacement, brake hose replacement, automatic transshifter, cable replacement, water pump replacement. So they give you some idea of what to expect there.
It'd be really nice if they did a chart of these particular things, and then also a chart of the known issues with the LR3 and a side-by-side comparison between the Disco 3 and the Disco 4, because I still don't understand the difference.
Good question.
Maybe if I had a few of them, I would understand the difference better, but I'm not curious enough to want to go out and buy them.
And it concludes here with just bear in mind, whether you're going pre-owned, certified, or private seller, you're basically buying a lottery ticket. A used LR4 might go another 10 years without issue, or it might wind up with a 3-ton brick in your driveway the minute you get it home.
In other words, it's a Land Rover.
We have no reservations recommending a cheap LR4 as your back road beater, but if you want a daily driver, you want something you can actually count on. Say it again, Harold.
Reliability. It's underrated. Overrated.
Next up, a fun story from out of the UK. English dad transforms his son's mini Land Rover into an amphibian machine and drives it across a lake. So a dad from England completely transformed his young son's mini Land Rover into an amphibious vehicle. The ambitious amphibious project involved an electric miniaturized Land Rover built from a kit. While the mini Land Rover was great fun to drive around on land, the dad was curious to know what it would be like on water, so he set himself the task of finding out. The UK dad, car enthusiast, and YouTuber Tornado Dave decided to take on this unusual project.
Great name.
He converted an electric mini Land Rover built from a kit he designed into an amphibious vehicle. It takes a lot of work to turn around a road-going vehicle into something that can travel on water. As the original kit wasn't designed to go on the water, Dave had to make several adjustments and even crafted a whole new hull from sheet aluminum. To add some extra buoyancy, he filled the car's doors with foam and then fitted some sump pumps to collect any water and get rid of it. He also moved all of the electrics onto the top of the car so they hopefully wouldn't be submerged. With all the hard work done, it was time to test out the DIY's amphibious vehicle by taking it out onto the water. And I'll make you go out and check out the video to see, does it sink or not?
This sounds like a Top Gear episode.
It does. That's exactly what I thought, Harold. Exactly. Looks exactly like a Top Gear episode.
Maybe it catching fire because of the exhaust being next to the foam.
Yeah, so there's a whole video on him doing some of the work and actually taking it out onto the water.
That said, I want to see him use this as a prototype for a full-size Land Rover conversion.
Ooh, there we go. Could challenge him.
There you go, Dave. There's your gauntlet.
And finally, I just like some of the snark that comes out of Jalopnik. So let's read some of the snark that comes out of Jalopnik about our beloved community and Land Rovers. This is entitled, "Why We Can't Help But Love Old Land Rovers Even Though They're Unreliable." Here's the intro. They may leak, they may groan, they may leave mysterious puddles in your driveway, but despite being about as dependable as a Craigslist WRX and promising never vaped in, old Land Rovers continue to hold a strange power over otherwise rational people. From series trucks that look like wartime relics to bougie P-38s with early air suspension, they just won't go away, and we keep letting them back in. As we noted in our roundup of unreliable cars worth the headache, the Land Rover continues to top the charts when it comes to unreliability and irrational loyalty. It's not just nostalgia, to be fair. These trucks did actual work. They climbed mountains, hauled livestock, chauffeured Queen Elizabeth II around Belmore. They were, and in many cases still are, field ambulances, farm roundabouts, beach buggies for families and safari goers alike. Whether it was a Series 1, putting post-war Britain on wheels, or Discovery, ferrying the whole family through snow-covered suburbia, Land Rovers carved a space for themselves in every terrain and tax bracket. The blend of rugged grit, aristocratic sheen, and a whole lot of mechanical machoism created a fan base that absolutely knows better and keeps coming back anyway.
I think there's a relationship between dependability and enjoyability in there somewhere, because I've had a lot of cars over the days, and the ones that never gave me any trouble at all, I found boring. I hated them.
Yeah.
The ones that were the complete pain in the ass, I missed them. I loved them.
I think that they're also mixing in the British Leyland heritage here, because a lot of the older British vehicles had similar reputations. They just don't, for the most part, exist now, except out of very small collector communities.
And again, they're just parroting the reputation. They haven't had enough of them personally, these riders, to really speak from a position of experience. A lot of that reputation for unreliability, it comes back to deferred maintenance.
The end of this article, I like this too. Unfortunately, even new Land Rovers look like a reliability nightmare, seemingly have a hard time letting go of their roots. It's like they're afraid that if they stop breaking down, they'll lose their heritage. It's about preserving something bigger than the truck. It's heritage, bonding, and personality over perfection. And really, that's the sell. You could buy something more reliable, but where is the soul in that?
That goes back to my point. If it's too dependable and too reliable, it's boring. It's a soulless transportation appliance. If you want that experience, just buy a Toyota or something.
Yep.
Very true.
I'm spot on, Harold. Spot on. Where is the soul in that? And that's why you can't have just one.
Oh, if you have your Land Rover, you're going to be able to always get to your destination because you've been turned into a mechanic. If you've got a Toyota, go check out whichever hotels are going to be around, because you're going to be in a completely different challenge.
And with the Land Rover, not only are you proficient at repairing it, thanks to your experience, but you also have this incredible network of friends to help you out, which, again, doesn't exist in the Toyota world.
No, the old Burma Bright Brotherhood that existed in the 90s with the series vehicles and such off of the Land Rover owners' mailing list.
And the now Sully Hall Sisterhood, too.
Yes.
It has created community. On that note of a vehicle with a soul, that's the news for June of 2025. And now, welcome to the CentreSteer podcast. Our friends to the west in Ohio. In Columbus, Ohio, we have Rick Simmonds and Austin Germain of the Green Oval Guild. It's a Land Rover club in Ohio. Welcome, gentlemen.
Who'd have thunk?
You're having us. Yes, thank you.
Welcome. You guys are both in Columbus, Ohio. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
The Green Oval Guild. I'm calling it the GOG. Is that what you guys call it? Tell me you call it the GOG.
No, we don't. But like I said, it's something that we would certainly answer to if you called us.
It's better than some things you could be called.
Which, and I alluded to earlier, yes. Yeah, just in fact, this morning, we've been called worse things than that.
Harold and I are near Pittsburgh, and we're part of the Fort Pitt Land Rover group, so we like to call it FPLRG.
Nice.
That's what it spells. So
That's what it spells. That's why I was like, GOG.
it's a lot easier than saying FPLRG. It's just FPLRG.
The Green Oval Guild, how did it get started, and when did it get started?
It started actually, and obviously with celebrating our 20th anniversary, started in 2005. And it's funny, we put our heads together in the last week or so to talk a little bit about this. And I think that what we came up with was there was a couple of guys that bought some D2s or bought a couple of Land Rovers, and at one point saw a road closed sign because there was some kind of construction, and went around the road closed sign and thought, boy, this is really fun.
Yeah,
so
that sign sounded like a challenge to me.
yeah, exactly.
Tell me that's
So
true.
they-
Is that true?
It's very true.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So they decided that they were going to be this group and meet together, and there were people came and went. Right about 2007 was when we started going to the wilds out in the eastern part of Ohio. And it's actually started by a guy by the name of Rick Allen, who was at the time with another Land Rover dealership and ultimately ended up at Land Rover Easton with Austin. And he started making contact with that Land Rover dealership, and it developed, as you guys probably are aware, to a bunch of other stores. And eventually, I think it was 2008 or 9, the Green Oval Guild GOG took it over.
He's using it already. I love it. Great.
Yeah, how about that? It took off at that point, and we started arranging a whole bunch of different stores to come out to visit. And one of them was actually Bobby Rahal. And we hosted numerous groups up until about 2014 is when that ended. And I think that's about the time in Austin, you could probably correct me, that's about the time when the Columbus Zoo took over the Wilds, I think.
Yeah, it was right around that time.
Okay.
So is that why the Wilds event stopped? Was because the Columbus Zoo took over?
Yes, basically.
I can speak a little bit to that because we tried to resurrect it, but the zoo had made a contract with the state of Ohio to study, I don't know if it was like some larvae or flies or something like that that was proven around the area. And in exchange for that and the grant associated with it, a lot of that land became protected. So therefore, Ranger Rick and the original
unusable
jog members roaming around the forest became not allowed. But it was definitely the stories I heard from Ranger Rick and those guys was unbelievable.
So for those of our listeners who aren't familiar with that Wilds event, can you give us a little explanation of what happened and where and why we're talking about it? Because it's the Wilds. It took place in a wildlife sanctuary.
Yeah. Ultimately, I mean, there's obviously there are different places and fences that prevent from you running into a rhinoceros while you're out there. But it was basically put together, like I said, by Ranger Rick, as we'll go ahead and title him that. And so what we would do is prior to an event, we would go out and do maintenance to make sure that it was a venue that we knew and knew well. Think about, okay, these might be some winching points and this might not be. Pray to God we don't get too much rain. And or vice versa. And so these groups would come and they would bring, typically it would be a combination. It could be customers. It could be, they even sometimes bring some demo vehicles, which there are some great stories about that salesmen thought that they were much better off-road than they actually were. In fact, we've got a couple where some guys slipped off.
Surprising.
I know, right? Some bumpers were ripped off and some high-centered moments. There were a couple of them. I don't know in-depth details, but there were some points where it was funny.
So it was challenging to the drivers of said vehicles. Tell us more about the lay of the land, because that part of Ohio, it starts to get flat. Hence, that's the reason why there's a line between Ohio and Pennsylvania, as far as I'm concerned. I grew up on hills and curves. You don't have that in that part of Ohio. It's basically flat.
Actually, in the southeastern part of Ohio, there's a lot of, in fact, that's where we do a very good portion of our off-roading on unmaintained county roads down there. So you'd be surprised. But there were woods, there were valleys, there were certainly not mountaintop. We're not talking about 7,000, 10,000 feet. But there were points to probably 2,000 feet right in there and then valleys in between where there would be, like I said, there'd be a lot of tree growth. And so we'd cut paths and we'd guide them through that area.
Is it rocky?
There was some rocky, but it's mostly muddy.
Okay.
You guys had multiple types of terrains depending on the skill of the driver, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Let's just say yes.
That's always the case, isn't it?
Yes.
It was in this wildlife refuge or wildlife park. What kind of animals would you encounter and how close did you get?
We didn't get anywhere near. It's a huge space. It's basically, I don't know what the word is, but it used to be a mining site.
Yeah.
And they donated it back to, and I don't remember, maybe it was coal. Maybe they mined there. I don't remember what they mined
probably,
there.
Right.
Similar to Western Pennsylvania.
So to be clear, the trails were well outside the animal enclosures.
Yeah. So they reclaimed the land, basically. And I thought Austin, part of the reason why we weren't allowed back was a particular type of blade of grass, too. But that's a whole other story.
The humans had another blade of grass?
Yeah,
understood.
Yeah, no, that's not it at all.
Oh, I see.
But so anyway, I'm sure that there was some type of donation involved of the land. And so that the animals, while they were there, you see them when you come into the park. And in fact, we'll talk about it later, but we're doing a 20th anniversary. I don't know whether the word would be gala, but it will be a get together where we will spend some time I'm sorry?
The GOG Gala. Sure. Gogla.
It's been named the GOG Gala. There we go. See, this is what we do on the podcast. We help you out with your marketing.
We are the coin masters.
And doggone it, we appreciate it. already.
And I think this is a good teaser, Rick. We'll keep people listening to the rest of this discussion. They'll learn at the end about your GOG gala.
And that's fine. But we are going to be heading back there. But you can see when you enter the park, there's certain spots where you can see different kinds of animals and giraffes. And Austin, you could probably speak a lot more to the kind of animals that they have there. I'm not even sure why I just said that, but it just
No.
They know more about these
animals and wild dogs and all sorts of things. And it's a 15-mile conservatory that all has different animals in these massive. They're not even enclosures. They're just huge areas that are dedicated to them. And it's really cool. So if you haven't been there, I know it's I think Cumberland, Ohio, which is about an hour or so from Columbus, and it's a really cool place.
I almost made it to, I think it was the last Wilds event, actually.
It was one of, if not the last, definitely.
Yes, I
think there was one more after we were tempted to be there.
I think there was. I think you're right, Harold. There was probably one more, and I made it to exit 169 on I-70, and I know that because I have a trophy that Harold made for me that year as part of our.
So if you flip it up, it might have the year on the bottom.
It does. 2012. Yes.
Look at there you go.
I had just imported my 1987 110 Defender 110. Okay, let's go out to the GOG. I've always wanted to go to this event, the Wilds. We were with our buddy Dave, who has since passed away.
The late great Dave Carroll.
And Harold was with me in the 110, and we go through Pennsylvania. We're on I-70, and we get to, I could literally see exit 169 in the vehicle, basically dead stops. We're on the side of the road.
The big brown sign that says the Wilds, and you couldn't get there.
And there I'm on the side of the road, and in typical Top Gear style, they abandoned me. Harold jumps in with Dave.
I jumped in Dave's truck, and it's like, sorry, John, see ya.
So
leaving the weakest behind.
I get flatbedded back to Pennsylvania. Come to find out later that Harold figured this out. There was a pinhole in the gasket for the fuel.
It's the
sender.
injection pump. It's the diaphragm for the fuel ejection pump. There's a little pinhole that let turbo boosted air get in, and we lose prime on the pump.
There was my attempt to get to the Wilds, and it didn't happen.
Sorry you didn't make it. We missed you.
I appreciate that. It's very kind. Very kind.
That was actually before we even started the CentreSteer podcast.
Was it? Oh, yeah.
In 2012. So we started 2013.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Wow.
That's been a while.
It has been.
One of the things that we love, too, about being able to do this sort of thing is being, obviously, ultimately connecting with you guys, too, but one of the midway through, I think, the Wilds events, Justin from Lucky 8 got deeply involved and was a huge supporter of our club. And we're really thankful for that. And even to this day, every once in a while, we'll text back and forth, and he's a character. He really is a character.
Yeah. My first time I ever met him was at the Wilds that year. And he'd brought a freezer with him, and he'd been on the trail all day with this freezer just to show that he could. And then he's dishing up ice cream afterwards.
So here, you guys left John at the intersection 69 on I-70.
Absolutely.
Yes, that absolutely happened. I was Top Gear fashion, left behind. I was left behind.
Wow.
I had a cell phone and AAA number.
We bailed off onto the shoulder, and John's trying to figure out how to get AAA to come get it. Meanwhile, I called up Dave. Told Dave where we were. I'll be over in 15 minutes. Like, okay, cool. Dave came over, laughed at John a little bit, and I just heaved my shit into Dave's truck and sorry, see ya.
We were that
what
close.
Did Harold and Dave get out of it? They got ice cream. And
yeah.
Wow. Now, would you even think twice about a freezer in the back now?
No, but back then it was a novelty and something Justin wanted to show off to everybody. No, we were all suitably impressed that the ice cream was still ice cream by the end of the day.
We're close enough to do other things that you're always welcome. And we can get into what kind of events we do currently, too. Outside of that, there's some terrific pictures that we've shared on there because I run the Green Ovals Guild Instagram. And I've shared a couple pictures from the early events even. And the thing I guess that's really amazing is how many different kinds of Land Rovers that we would see at these people. And it wasn't just the CEO of whatever company that just wanted to see what his truck could do. It was some Tom, Dick, or Harry that just thought it'd be cool to buy this Land Rover that didn't run and bring it out. And so that's one of the things that we always love about not only the Wilds, but just Land Rover groups in general is the very involved. It's really fascinating.
Rick, I do know that Ricky was talking about, who was our master tech that retired. Atlanta recent a few years back. I think Hummer had originally cleared those trails and at the wilds to showcase, I don't know if it was the H2 or H1 in the mid 2000s. And so I think that kind of got it started. And then obviously Hummer went no more. And then the GOG took over.
Yeah, you got it. Austin saying gone. Great.
Perfect.
That's
Perfect. It's
terrific.
wonderful.
We are the coin masters.
So Hummer cleared the way. See, this is fantastic. That's good to hear.
If that's H2, isn't that like a glorified Tahoe? Isn't that
Yes.
what that is?
Yes.
Okay. Great.
One of them was based off of the Silverado and one was based off
The
of...
Silverado and the Tahoe are the same platform.
Are they the same? Okay. The
Yeah,
what was...
it's a half-ton pickup. And then the H3 was based on the Blazer, which is the little one.
Or the Colorado.
And now it's the Colorado.
Blazer,
That's it.
Colorado and the Trailblazer are the same platform again. One's
Yeah.
a pickup, one's an SUV.
Now it's a 8,000 pounds battery operated something.
It's a battery pack on wheels.
Yes.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
So all those photos, can people see those photos in a way to go back and see what happened back at the wilds?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where would they find that? Do you have a website?
Well, on the Instagram site, which is green_oval_guild, is our Instagram site. And we post reels and videos and almost every single day on that one. I have posted pictures on there of the wild events, and I'm sure that there'll be some that made available to me that I can post sometime around when you guys release this podcast. Be happy to do that. Tag you.
Absolutely. Please do. And we'll have a link in the show notes, of course, to your Facebook page and to your Instagram page. And so that'd be fantastic if you do that. The wilds, then Ranger Rick, which is interesting that we have another Rick moniker in North American Land Rover community, because you've heard of Dr. Rick, I assume. Dr. Rick
internet
is
sensation, Dr. Rick, to
Yes.
you, sir.
My apologies. He's up in Minnesota, so that's Dr. Rick. But it sounds like we now have Ranger Rick in Ohio. What did Rick do? He started the club, is that correct? Or helped to start the club?
Basically what he did is he started the opportunity to go to the wilds, and then the club got involved. And then basically it just got bigger than he could handle. So he basically turned it over to us, and we ran with the ball. But he is an amazing guy. He knows Land Rovers. I mean, like Austin had mentioned, he's a master tech, and he is a brilliant guy from a Land Rover perspective. No, would always be happy to give you his opinion about your Land Rover that you own as well.
That sounds like every Land Rover.
There's a lot of people that will
That's
give
true.
you their opinion. Doesn't mean it's right,
Yes.
but they will give you
Yes.
their opinion.
You don't even have to ask
Yeah.
a Land Rover owner. They will give you their opinion of your truck. It's just...
He was a Land Rover whisperer, though. So when he usually gave his opinion, it was usually right. But I think he had a great divide that he used to take to the wilds at the time.
I don't know.
Yeah, he was part of the Great Divide. I don't know what we call it, expedition press event that they did out west. And he bought the truck, I think, post or before that, and was a big part and was a tech since 1990, Land Rover, and was with us at Easton. So he still comes back and helps me mess with some of my old NAS trucks from time to time, and keeps me on my toes.
I'm now going to target you, Austin, to get him on the program. Sounds like he needs to be a guest on the podcast.
Absolutely.
What other events has the Green Oval Guild had, or has anything replaced the wilds as some sort of annual
Oh,
tour?
definitely. I think, in fact, we probably every month, maybe more frequently even than that, I guess the groups vary in sizes, because sometimes we do more difficult trails than other times. And there are some people, which I don't blame them, that they've spent a lot of money on their truck and they prefer not to do damage, and which is great. What we'll do is we'll have different level of difficulty trail runs, and it could be anything from 3 of us, like there were yesterday, and we go down into Vinton County, and there are tons of unmaintained county roads down there, and they are every single rainstorm changed dramatically. And so we'll go down and we'll just, like, for example, instead of going to Kentucky to the Daniel Boone backcountry byway here in 3 weeks. And so myself, I put some dislocation cones in my D2, and I wanted to see how they performed. And I buried it in the water, and it had nothing to do with the dislocation cones, but they felt, I guess they were doing okay. So we do multiple from a trail run perspective. And we'll meet at either a restaurant down there, or there's a big gas station down there that we'll meet at. And we all make sure our GMRS channels are set, and we head out. We did really enjoy ourselves. And one of the things that's really important to understand about us is that unlike the top tier crew that you are involved in, we make it we make it a really strong point to make sure that everyone is taken care of when we're out there. No one is abandoned. You are correct.
So there's a difference between Pennsylvania and Ohio. There we go.
We do have some standards. We would not leave someone behind on a trail, but on a public roadway, you're on your own.
Especially when on a cell phone and a AAA card.
What are we going to do but leave him behind? If we stick around, we're just going to be cargo going home.
And the speed limit, was it 65 then, or because
it doesn't matter. We were in a Rover, so we were in
The speed of smell.
about the people going by you. Well, at least you didn't have to worry about them texting while they're driving, going by you then.
That's true. That's true. We were off the road enough, but
Good.
Yeah. And the traffic
Good.
wasn't too bad at that point.
One of the other really cool things that Green Oval Guild did for us and for our dealership is we had a Defender event down in Benton County. So we all stopped at the store at Easton, and Rick and his team, we all walkie-talkies and we caravanned. What is it, about an hour drive down to Benton County from Columbus?
That's correct.
Caravan about an hour down. We had food when we got there, and Rick and his team cleared trails prior to make sure that they were technical enough that everyone could have fun, but maybe not too technical for some novice Defender owners. And the feedback I got from our customers was being able to see what these cars can do and see what they're actually capable of doing. Not only, I think, give them a better understanding of what the history is with this brand, but also what their Bluetooth maybe doesn't connect with their Apple CarPlay from time to time. I think it gives them a little sense of understanding of what these cars are really designed to do. And the Apple CarPlay is a very small portion. But we've had events like that. And then we've also had Bill Burke speak to us at our store with Green Oval Guild. He camped out in his RV outside the dealership for a couple of days, and he is quite a character. Bill
as he goes wherever he goes.
Yes.
Bill is friend of the podcast. Absolutely.
But he let us down there, and he's an incredible guy. So to get to hear our customers and the GOG members hear his stories about Camel Trophy series and everything that he was a part of in Africa, and see those photos, and it's incredible. So that's just one of the many things that Green Oval Guild has done for us.
So in the Vinton County, what kind of terrain are we talking about, and how long do your trails usually last? Is this like a day trip, or are you overnighting?
It's a day. Yeah, it's a day. So we'll go down, we'll meet in the morning, usually 8:30, depending upon if we have breakfast down there. If we have breakfast, we'll find some kind of greasy store. And for me, that's like a challenge that I love, is trying to find a restaurant. We'll meet, and then we head off, and typically right away, it's a challenge. And they're all rocks, rocky terrain, and there are ledges. And primarily, if you look at the videos on the Instagram site, that's primarily from Vinton County. So there is rocks, there's Salt Creek, which is a pretty good sized creek that we go through. And it's a lot of challenge, and it's a lot of fun for all of us. And I think one of the things with Austin mentioning about the Defender, that was really, for me, pretty exciting. There were some challenges like, how do you spot someone that has tinted windows and their windows are up with the AC on full blast? But outside of that, it was really a great group of people that did ultimately want to know more about what their vehicle could do. And I felt with the time that we spent, because I don't exactly remember the man hours, but there's when trails that may overgrow, and you got to go with a bunch of loppers and get miles and miles trimmed so that they don't scratch up this, however, the dollar vehicle that they purchased. And we made it a point to do that because we wanted them to be able to enjoy the part of the challenge, but then not also worry about, is this tree going to put a vehicle?
What kind of trucks do you get? Are you getting the full range? Are you getting any Series 1s? And a follow-on question is, how are the new Defenders doing?
Two things. One, we get everything. We get Santanas even. We've got D1s, a lot of D1s. And now it's funny because a lot of guys are swinging towards, like Chris, one of them, our main guy. He just transferred a lot of his suspension and motor from a D1 to a Defender 90. And he's got a diesel, that a TDI that is so much fun to watch. It's so capable. So a lot of guys are switching. We got another guy just bought a 110, an old 110 he imported, I think, from Spain. And he's has a new Defender as well, a 90. And he's brought it out a couple times. And I think that in the environment that he was in, I thought it did great. It was a lot of fun because I followed him. And again, there's a lot of video of me following him on the Instagram site. But it's, from my perspective, the thing that I struggle with, and maybe is, I don't know what's happening with my new Defender or new D5 or whatever. But what I know is I see a lock on my screen or an unlock on my screen, but I'm not getting that. That's what some people choose. That's fine. yeah, I need some feedback. And so I don't get that as much as I would like. And maybe if that's all, that's great. But for me, I've got a big V8, not big, but at least I got a V8 that is horrendously ticking currently, quite frankly. But anyway, so
Let's get out the top hats.
Yeah, it's like running is ticking.
I think it's funny. It's a 4-liter. It's not 4.6. So I know that
they'll do it too.
It's more prevalent. Yeah, no, I know, but they're much more prevalent. But I think one of the things that we're trying to figure out what it is, and we can get into the story of this motor because it's part of a great story about the truck itself. But my son and I rebuilt the whole top end. So it had new lifters, new cam, and new rocker shafts, and the heads were done by a machine shop. And I think it's got about 20,000 miles on it, and now it's ticking again. I don't know. We'll see. That's one of the beautiful things about it is that I've got the capability, maybe the desire. I don't know that capability is the right word. Desire to, if I need to pull it and put a new one in, and I'll do it. That's fine. I can do it.
Yeah, it's good to have at least the motivation to do it, regardless of the reason.
Would you do it yourself, or are you?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. In fact, that's kind of a funny story. When I put I've got a blue Monte Carlo blue 2003 Discovery that I bought with horrendous rod knot, and I just pulled the motor and put the 4-liter in that we had rebuilt, my son and I. And my wife and I at that point had been married probably 32 years or 33 years. And she came out and the old motor was probably halfway over the core support on the crane. And she came bounding out and she wanted to tell me something. And she just must have seen a look on my face that she's seen before. And it was more, you know what? And it was just the exact words where, you know what? I think I'll just come back and we could talk about that later.
You had that look on your face.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure my hair was engulfed in flames because I had no idea what the heck I was doing. But it was just, let's just get it done. If somebody can do it, I can do it too. There are plenty of junk parts available that I can screw it up and replace it with something else. So we pop the 4-liter in there and we're good to go.
Are there events that are not just in the eastern part of Ohio, since you do cover all of Ohio, right?
Yes. In fact, I know the group we had talked about, the Cuyahoga group, which is a part of the Green Oval Guild. They do events up in Southington. And like us, they have social events as well. We do a Rovers and Coffee event there at the dealership multiple times. And Austin's been incredibly gracious to host us. I don't even know how many times, but they provide us coffee and donuts, and we show up with multiple kinds of Land Rovers. And the beautiful thing is either Austin or his wife drive up in an NAS Defender themselves.
Oh, excellent. That's good. That's good. So you welcome the leaf sprung trucks?
That's the part is when they bring all those trucks, because everyone gets to see, I think, the heritage of the brand and see where it came from and the evolution of it. Because let's be honest, the NAS trucks with the NAS specs of the 90s are iconic. And so when people get to see Santana, I didn't know what that was until I got involved with the brand and understand the kind of history of that. And you get to see all these European trucks that are imported in the US and the kind of expansion of that. We've got a great customer, Dustin's his name, with the Defender 90, and he imported a 87 110 from Europe that he's working on himself. And he's not a gearhead by any means, but after buying a Defender 90 and then getting involved with the Green Oval Guild, now he rebuilt his motor on that 110, and it's opened up a passion for him that he never knew existed. And thankfully, guys like Rick and other members of the guild can provide resources to somebody like that where they're just brand new and don't know where to get started. And guys like him are always willing to lend a hand.
That's good. Western Ohio, do you have events that go on out that way?
In fact, we just had a Rovers and Coffee at the Dayton dealership with the group out there. And they are also down in Cincinnati. There's a group of a couple of guys that have actually put together a couple of Rovers and Coffee at the Cincinnati Jaguar Land Rover dealership down there. And Chris and I went down, and it was a pretty good event. We really enjoyed it. The donuts weren't as good as ours. It was okay.
And it's JLR, sir.
And what's funny is when I started with JLR, if you called it JLR, they would lose their minds. They were so against it. And then all of a sudden they're like, now it's only JLR. Don't refer to it as anything else.
Although they haven't updated their websites, they still use landrover.co and landrover.com. I purport within maybe a decade, it'll go back to being Land Rover and Jaguar, assuming Jag continues. Hopefully it does.
So you mentioned a couple of these sort of subgroups. So do you have officially subgroups, or is it just regions of the state? Because obviously it's a fairly large state, so it doesn't make sense to have everybody attend all of the different events.
Yeah, I think we are not as formal as and maybe some people would like us to be. But I think if DJ up in Cleveland calls us and says he's doing this event, can you guys come? If we're available, we're there. As just he's come down to Vinton County events multiple times. And like I said, we've gone down to the Rovers and Coffee events down in Cincinnati. But I don't think the entire group goes, I guess, if that answers your question. But I don't know if that helps or answers it fully.
Yeah, definitely. Just I was curious about how, since it is mostly through social media that you interact, whether there are subgroups. But yeah, it makes sense to whoever is available. If they want to do something, go to an event. That doesn't have to be official. That honestly probably makes it a lot easier in many aspects.
We really do enjoy ourselves. That's one key thing about the dog.
There it is. There it is. Yeah, once again.
You're welcome.
So how did it become a guild? Is that just because you didn't want to use the word club?
Yeah, I could wax on about something, but yeah.
Because somewhere subconsciously they knew that if we started calling it the Gawk, it wouldn't sound as good.
Oh, yeah. That would have a
Right.
whole another go down to...
Yeah, especially somebody threw some limericks together. That would be embarrassing.
That would, yes, that's a whole different podcast. It's kind of like the Fort Pitt. When it started, which it started long before I was involved, and it didn't.
1996.
It was the Fort Pitt Land Rover group. Still is the group. It's not a club because they didn't want to call it a club.
That's really not a club. In many ways, it's not a club.
Yeah.
Still don't want to call it a club, evidently.
A club implies a certain amount of organization and activity level, which doesn't seem to exist right now.
It's more the activity level. We've tried several times to get things restarted and jump started. And I just think it's the ebb and flow of any hobby where you have a certain amount of people and then they either age out or they've filled up their cup, so to speak, with whatever it is, or their life situation changes. And when that core folks move on, and then you're not bringing in new people, it's tough to continue to sustain.
I believe in professional sports, they call it that a rebuilding year.
And we've been rebuilding for about a decade, sir.
Yeah. We've had a rebuilding decade.
Like the Browns.
Or maybe the Steelers.
I wasn't going to mention the group.
You guys have championships. You guys have championships.
Yes, that's right. All right, so let's move on to you, Rick. How'd you become a Land Rover person? What happened? Did you get bit by the disease? Did you get run over by a series truck? What happened?
Maybe, but actually, this is a wonderful story. A good friend of mine, he and I had owned a couple buildings together. He was a Land Rover guy. And he had probably bought the first year that the Discovery came out and proceeded to buy numerous Discoveries after that. And finally, I think his last one was a 99 white D2. And he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, which in most cases, as we all know, it's a death sentence. And he had decided that at that point, he had already owned multiple Audis. So he just had this D2 sitting in his driveway, and he decided he wanted to give it to my son, who props to or shout out to Pennsylvania, who ultimately played football for St. Francis University in Loretto. But he gave it to my son, and it was just a wonderful opportunity for my son and I to connect on how to get this thing running, how to fix the things that were wrong with it. And just fascinating too, because I also own a 1963 Oldsmobile F85 that has the 218 aluminum block V8 in it. And
you said the magic words.
There was some fascination from my perspective too. But so we worked together on that and rebuilt the top half of the motor and just did some really fun things together with it. And when he went out to school, Dad took it out on one of our events and maybe rolled it, maybe.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Dad. Good job, Dad.
I see. Just checking that is your son's dad, not your dad.
Yeah, which
just
strangely enough is the mirror for me. And it was really disappointing. It was heartbreaking, to be honest, because Doug was such a wonderful guy, and Doug had passed by then. And one of the things that I should add that's amazing about the Green Oval Guild is there were people there like Eric Brown, who's up in Northern Ohio, that was there, that he is the professor of extraction, basically. I mean, he's a Bill Burke protege. And Eric was there, and just cool, calm, collected, opened the hood, made sure it was running, made sure that everything was fine, because it was a complete roll. And I did stick the landing. He made sure everything was fine. In fact, we had to put a high lift inside the door after we opened the door to raise the roof a little bit so I could see out and drive it out back onto the street, which then I was picked up by Chris Ray on his dually and the trailer, my current vehicle, and we proceeded to look for a replacement. And we found one that had bad rod knock, and we ultimately put that, as I mentioned, that 4-liter motor in it later. And while my son wasn't as deeply involved in the events as I'd love him to be, I think it was just a period in his life and my life where we really connected well.
That's a wonderful story. Just for clarity's sake and posterity's sake, what was the full name of your friend?
Doug Campbell.
Doug Campbell. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry for your loss. And it's a wonderful story. What out of some tragedy there became sounds like a very nice human moment.
Yeah. Wonderful guy. Can't say enough good things about him. I miss him and I loved him dearly.
Was he a big Land Rover fan, an owner, I take it?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. He loved his Land Rover, boy. He just was all about the driving position. That was his thing, the driving position. When he sunk his teeth into something, he just was so passionate. And this was one of those things. He was a field hockey referee and made it a point to be the best field hockey referee in Ohio. And that's who he was. And I, again, miss him. He was a great mentor for me.
What happened to the rolled D2 then? How upset was your son? I know you replaced the vehicle, but did you take parts off or did it get rebuilt later?
That's a great question.
And that means the answer is going to be interesting.
It's so funny. We devised a plan because at that point I'd already had, I think, bought every Lucky 8 suspension part. I'm still trying to figure out how I got an HD 2-inch lift that's somehow is a 3-inch lift. I don't understand.
That's the HD part.
Oh, okay. Then why? I just don't understand why why don't we call it a 3-inch lift and when we buy it?
Because then you don't get to say it's HD.
Oh, okay.
It's like plus in the tech industry.
Okay, that's it. So I've got the Terraforma Plus suspension package. And so we had that way already purchased. There were a bunch of things that I'd purchased. So a bumper from Chris Frisch, who Dark Crow Designs, he is a phenomenal fabricator. You see his bumpers everywhere, which is also another GOG guy, GOG, I guess, if you could say that. We transferred things, but we did at Chris's place, most of the things. And then what he did was he trailered the rolled D2 and we put it in my driveway next to the new D2. And I'll never forget this because my neighbors had just purchased their home right across the street and their bedroom window looked out at my driveway. And I made it a point to run over and say, look, this is not typical of this neighborhood. I promise you this frame will be out of here in a month, because I could see his eyes were huge and trying to hide it by saying I had some kind of passion. But so I proceeded to just switch everything over and just move everything over. And then when it was done, one of the guys down in Cincinnati bought the frame and we scrapped the rest.
You just need to invite that neighbor on a trail ride and that'll take care of that problem.
Yeah, then there will be one in his driveway.
Or two.
Right.
He gets to return the table.
Or
no doubt.
What other Land Rovers have you owned?
For me, that's it. I'm so
nice,
passionately involved in this D2. I love the color, though I'm removing much of it every time I go out. But it's just a remarkable color.
So you're a serial monogamist when it comes to your Rovers, then?
I am. Yes,
Is this the Monte Carlo blue?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
2003.
Nice. How many miles you got on it now?
On the motor or on the truck?
You pick.
The truck's got 160 and the motor is 230, 240.
What kind of mods have you made besides the lift?
At this point, we've got lockers front and rear. I started with rear lockers, and as time goes on, we look at the other guy. How the hell can he do that? And I can't do that. And then the guy that would sell you the locker says it's because he has a front locker and you don't. And then you say, how do I get a front locker? And he'd say, conveniently,
give me your credit card number.
Yes, I have one right here. So
of course you do.
Yeah. And to be honest, Chris Ray, who is the guy I mentioned, he's our head guy.
Mr. Mudruts.
That's correct. He is the most amazing guy, and he's always got time for everybody. That's the thing that's astounding to me, is he always has time. And he is a trail psychologist as well, or psychiatrist maybe. He is the best spotter that you could be seconds from rolling over, and he is just cool as the other side of the pillow and will talk you out of it. And he always does. But I can't say enough good things about him. From his technical skill, he held my hand through all of the upgrades. We put a 2004 transfer case in it. We corrected the wiring in it because for whatever reason that wasn't working correctly, and fixed that. And so I just recently put a dual air. I had a CO2 tank in it, and I took it out and put a dual air ARB compressor in the back passenger rear. But yeah, it's just an ongoing thing. HD axles, or plus, I guess if you're in the IT world, axles. It's an ongoing thing, and I love it. I love the people that I've met, and I'm happy where I am.
That's great. That's excellent. All right, let's move over to Austin. Austin, how did you become a Land Rover person? Or is it just because you bought the dealership and now
you're stuck with it?
Was it that easy?
Probably a little bit of both. So I got ingrained with Land Rover when our family opened up Land Rover of Easton in Columbus, Ohio. We had bought Jaguar of Columbus from the Byers family and got the Land Rover point in 2018. So we got to open up the facility, and I hired all the staff. Rick was actually my first employee, first hire, which was phenomenal because he really showed me the way. And while I knew Land Rover was a cool brand and had a cool history, it wasn't until we opened the store and I got deeply involved with Land Rover that I really got the bug and understood the passion that both the customers have and the employees have about Land Rover. It's such a cool, iconic brand. I think a lot of brands have tried to steal that panache and cachet, and as goofy as Land Rover is, and as crazy as some of their products are from time to time, they've got it in spades, and I don't know what it is they bottled in their late 80s, early 90s and in the UK, but they've got it figured out. And I've been on Trek 3 times with Land Rover, which is a super cool employee competition that they do across the United States, where every Land Rover dealer buys a particular Land Rover, usually outfitted by Lucky 8, and gets to compete on like an 8-hour mini Camel Trophy event with employees where you sleep in the woods, wake up at 5 a.m., run through the woods, find your truck. I've been electrocuted during it. We went off path. So I'll tell the story. We were following the Land Rover Charlotte guys, and they were these big guys, big tough looking guys. They got to know where they're going. So they got lost, and in turn we got lost. And we went through a cattle prod fence that was definitely not on the map for a reason, and got electrocuted for Land Rover Track a few years ago. So,
well, did you touch the fence? What?
The first guy touched it, went over, and we thought he was kidding.
Oh.
So all of us were over after, and at the same time realized he was not kidding. He just didn't have time to warn us.
Oh my! So it was keep the cows out, and
there was keep the cows out, and apparently the Land Rover guys
and the Land Rover guys. See, I thought Land Rover people were smart. Apparently, maybe not so much.
Not as smart as your average cow, apparently.
Yes, we didn't read the sign, but so been involved with Land Rover for the past 7 years, and Green Oval Guild was an early partnership thanks to Ranger Rick, and they just do such a good job that it was a no-brainer to align our dealership with them and the brand that they have and the kind of family culture that they built that has allowed our customers to transform from just mole crawlers to the next stage, which is not necessarily rolling their D2s in Southern Ohio.
No one wants that.
No one wants that. Yeah, they do a phenomenal job. So I can't say enough about Land Rover and my passion for it. I'll show you guys something that may surprise you. I don't know if Rick actually knows this, but I have a NAF 90 Defender tattoo.
Excellent. As an audio podcast, he does have it on his forearm there. Yes. And by the way, just to let you know,
all right.
I also have a tattoo.
I'd like to show you guys one of my tattoos.
No, different podcast, Rick. Different podcast.
Sorry.
I appreciate that. That's very funny, though. Well done, sir.
Well done.
You do get points for that one. So, Austin, do you guys have like monthly activities for owners to come out? Because it seems like Land Rover's not been supporting that lately and getting rid of the off-road tracks at the dealerships.
They did when we opened the store. One of the things I wanted was the off-road track, and we were in the era going from the Compass dealership to the Arch facilities. And so they didn't want that. That just fueled me more to make sure that our customers knew the off-road kind of lifestyle and understood that connection that Land Rover had. Because while Land Rover at that time, pre-Defender, may not have lost sight of that, I realized that was a core key component to what our brand is and who they are.
So you have events monthly, or you invite your customers out?
Yeah, we have events from very swanky soirees with the Range Rovers to off-road events with the Defenders and Discos. And I've got the 3 of the Trek trucks, like I said, and then I've got a couple of NAS trucks myself. And so I love Land Rover. And I think it's when people see D2s, D3s, LR4s, LR3s out on the road, I think it makes them realize, oh, that's a cool brand. And then they come in and buy the new ones. But we also sell a lot of vintage ones. I've sold, the list of Kalaharis. We've sold Kalaharis. We've sold European imports. We've sold European import trucks, 110s, NAS trucks. So I'm a Defender lunatic. So if it's got a Defender and no matter where it's from, we'll sell it.
What about like older stuff? Series trucks, get into those or?
So I've never been a big Series 1, Series 2 guy. We've got a customer that is quite the vintage Land Rover collector. And so I've been in his. As much as I love the Series 1 and 2, trying to go 60 miles an hour anywhere in a Series 1 and 2, unless you're downhill with some weight and somebody pushing you, it doesn't make them for great vehicles. But we've got a number of customers that have them as farm trucks that use them as they are intended to be used.
But they're actually using them as farm trucks. That's really cool. That's cool to hear, because usually when someone here in North America has a series truck, they're just driving it themselves and maybe going on trail. They're not actually using it for its intended purpose.
Yeah, we've got a number of guys that use them for true farm trucks, the front drive, spindles, and the whole thing.
Oh, they're still using the power takeoff.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to put us in touch with some of these people. We need to talk to them because people actually using them. That's really cool. I didn't realize that was still going on here. And are you driving a Land Rover as your daily?
Yeah, so I drive a new Defender.
Nice. 90, 130, 110?
110.
Nice.
110. It's interesting. You talk about the 110 and 130, and the 90 has never sold very well in the U.S. I think it's the coolest car, but people will come and they'll look at it and be like, great, but I want a big second row, so they buy the 110. But
you need room if you're going to be traveling across a large open expanse that is Ohio, Pennsylvania, the United States. You want to carry stuff.
Yep.
What about the Octa? Have you driven the Octa?
I have driven the Octa. It's incredible. I think I'm excited because Land Rover's going back to the off-road hardcore vehicles, and the Octa is that. It's 650 horsepower. It's incredible. The suspension, it feels more like a trophy truck than anything else because of how kind of floaty it is at a high rate of speed off-road, but it's an incredible vehicle. They knocked it out of the park, and I think it's going to be very successful in the U.S.
Well, I'd like to jump off and check my email for the invite to help drive or be a passenger on that Octa. But Austin, or maybe you texted me. I'm not sure, but I should go back and
there's a test run that we have coming up that I'll make sure you're the pilot of based on your illustrious history off-road.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Rick, you can maybe ask Justin over Lucky 8 because he was passing through my area and he said ask me if I wanted to drive his Octa, and he let me drive his Octa.
How about that?
And for some reason, they're still friends.
My one-word review of the Octa: bonkers, absolute bonkers.
They just took a Defender, made it into car truck, which is
Land Rover bought Bowler about 5 years, right around the time of when COVID started. They bought Bowler, so that even though they haven't said it, that's what this is. They've taken all that Bowler technology, and it's now into the Octa, and then they're gonna go into the Dakar Rally. They're going to be competing this year in the stock category. So that's where they came from. I think for the Octa, it's less the acceleration of that vehicle than it is the stopping because of the 6D air suspension system that keeps you dead level. There's no yaw, pitch, no bow drop, none of that. It's just dead steady when you go from 70 to 0. And that was under Justin's guidance. He told me to do that.
Of course.
Of course he did.
All right, Austin, as someone who's actually participated in the trek, can you tell us a little more about it? Like aside from don't touch fences that may in fact be electrocuted or electrical.
Yeah, Trek came about, I think, the late 90s, early 2000s was really the last treks that existed. And Rory, who as part of Land Rover North America, was actually the Land Rover tech for the continent of Africa. And so when trucks would go down, he would get in a plane, like a little Cessna, and fly to these game reserves and work on these trucks. So he came from there and Land Rover South Africa to the U.S. market and was head of parts and service at the time and was like, I really think that there's a way that we can bring back Trek and incorporate our dealers and show what these vehicles can do and how to work together as a team. And I think the first one I was involved in was probably 2019 with a disco. And you sleep in the woods, we'll wake up at 5 a.m. It's in the dark. You've got headlamps on, and somebody had to run 5 miles. Somebody had to canoe 5 miles. Somebody had to bike 5 miles. And Ranger Rick, who was older at the time, we were like, what's going to be the easiest for you to do? And he's like, I can canoe. And Other guy was like, I can bike. And I'm like, I'm not great at running, but apparently that's the last choice. So I get to run. And you ran to the vehicle that were sent 5 miles away, either by water, bike, or by foot. And then your 8 hours started from there, where you had a map that didn't have locations, but it had GPS coordinates. You had a GPS monitor, and you had to get to these different coordinates to start these challenges, of which some were winching, some were backing up, some were taking off tires and running around the vehicle as fast as you could. Crazy stuff. We had to winch a rock around a tree using different shackles to be able to incorporate the winch. So pretty technical stuff. And you had somebody from sales, somebody from service, somebody from parts in every vehicle. And I remember calling my mom after, and she's like, what did you just do? And I was like, I just lived in the woods for a day, running around with Land Rover, competing in this thing. And from that moment on, I was like, this is such a cool brand. So we have participated in truck every year and had our employees as well, because I think from a closeness standpoint, you don't realize how close you are. So you have to shackle a Land Rover around a tree and trust everybody. And another one was they blindfold somebody'd have a radio and somebody'd be in the vehicle. The guy with the radio couldn't see what you were driving. The guy with the blindfold was driving the truck. And then the other guy with the radio was trying to get feedback from the other to coordinate what to do, where to go, left, straight.
Oh, wait, just to pause you there, because I've done blindfold driving. The person on the radio could see where you were and what was going on. So you're saying this was 2 people on radios, 1 driver blindfold. Wow, that does elevate the technical challenge.
And put one of those radio operators speaking Scottish, and that's that challenge.
Yes, Mar, which takes place down in Virginia. This was in between Pearl's Pond activity. I was down there, and we did the blindfold driving challenge, and my radio operator was Scottish Bob. He's actually from Scotland.
Yes. He speaks very Scottish.
Yes. Very thick accent.
Very Scottish.
Yes.
I'm impressed, John, that you...
Bob Fuller?
That is Bob Puller.
Yes, that's Bob Puller.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have his power steering box. Yeah, steering box in my D2 as of a week ago.
There you go.
Cool.
See, the Land Rover community is very small.
Yes.
How well did you understand him when you went to pick it up?
Actually, a friend of ours bought his truck, his D2.
Oh, okay.
It's here in Ohio now. Yeah.
Oh, Nessie.
Yeah. I know Bob. He's a wonderful guy.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. He's part of FBLRG. We just haven't done anything in a long time. Yeah. That's cool, Austin. The trek, we've never had anybody actually participate before. So I appreciate you giving us the background on that. That's really cool.
No, absolutely. Yes. The first year was with a disco, and then every year since has been with the Defender 110, 130, et cetera. And Lucky 8 outfitted them, and we use everything from the air compressors in the car, so extra tires, so that solar lights, everything related to that car you utilize. And that's, I think, coming back to the dealership and seeing what these cars are capable of is much like what Green Oval does. But Trek does that, to be able to show the employees in a way that across the country, they see what these vehicles really do.
I'm sure the competition aspect is not as important as the fact you were just participating and doing kind of cool stuff, but how well did you guys do?
You want to win for sure. And they do it where whoever gets to the whatever series, because not everything is in succession. Depending on where you go and depending on your time is less than what the group that finished it before you. So as the day goes on, each competition or each segment get less and less valuable. There's a lot of strategy associated with it. It's a wildly fun.
Good deal. Appreciate that.
Speaking of Bob Fuller, we had an event, I want to say it was 3 years ago or so. We called it the GOG Trophy. And we pulled in some sponsors, P8, LR Easton, and others. There was some a recovery rope company. So we had a bunch of different people got together and companies got together to donate things to help us to give trophies, basically. And so what we decided to do was have this event down in Benton County. And we had people from Pennsylvania, Bob Puller, and some folks from Kentucky, and 2 or 3 groups from Columbus, I think, that all competed in these different events that ultimately we were judged by people that had been around Land Rover and recovery for a very long time. So we had all these different groups. I think there were at some point 8 trucks. So we had the Southdown Defender 90. That was from England. Tom Kuhn owns that truck. And he competed. And we had just a whole bunch and just a bunch of different events. And then at the end of the night, we had a group get together and made us this incredible meal. And we just celebrated. And then they tallied up all the points. And ultimately myself and another guy won the event. It was really fun. It was a good time.
Nice. That's good. It sounds like you had a good time. How many people competed?
I think we had 8 trucks. So there were multiple. There was probably 3 or 4 D2s, some D1s, and at least one Defender 90 TD.
There were 2 to 3 people per truck.
And you guys maybe know this better than I do. There was a company started in England somewhere called South Downs, and their premier truck was this South Down Defender. It was an orange truck. And one of our guys, Tom Kuhn, actually purchased it, and he called it Orange Crush, and he competed it with his wife. And he had only snapped one axle. So that was fun.
I think I've heard of Orange Crush as a truck name, but I don't think I've ever heard of Southdown.
Oh, yeah. It was incredible. All the different events that we did and numerous winching, numerous graded on what the ideas we came up with on how to winch in a certain situation and just all the safety aspects of it too. Just a simple thing like stepping on the winch rope as opposed to straddling it, which is a mistake. Just things like that are things that they took notes on and ultimately gave you points or took away points.
Very cool. Is that something that's going to happen again?
Yeah, I think we're going to try and do it again. We just haven't really put together how to make it, how to grow it. Just the best. It was one of those things that had some issues with logistics because in the area that we're in, there's no cell coverage. So it's all smoke signal and GRMS radios only go so far. So there were some issues with that, but I think we definitely want to try and do it again. I think that many of our sponsors were excited about being involved with it. So yeah, I think you win a CO2 tank. That's a nice gift.
One of the things though that I do want to bring up with guys like Rick and these guilds clubs is Rick has a day job, and Green Oval Guild is certainly not that day job. These guys like Rick take out of their time, which he's got a family and kids and jobs and responsibilities, takes time out of his busy week to post for Green Oval Guild, to set up events with dealerships like myself, to have customers, their customers go out on these trail runs. And so it is incredible. And I think it's these type of clubs that really make brands like Land Rover great, is because it's just ran by guys that love the brand and love the product and just want to be involved with their friends and go off road. And so I think it's something that needs to be mentioned, the hard work that these type of clubs do to put these things on, because they're not easy. They do take a lot of time, and without them, they wouldn't exist. So thank you for those like them, especially the Green Oval Guild.
Exactly. Maybe that will become part of your 20th anniversary GOG Gala.
Maybe. What would you call that?
The
Goggala.
Goggle.
The trophy goggle.
I like it. The
The
Goggle.
trophy goggle.
It's been named. It is now going to be called the Goggle.
Oh, those are funny.
That's good. So tell us about what's the planning? What's the thinking? What kind of plans are there for the
I think at this point, the plan and I think what we're going to try and do is make it a long weekend. What we'll do is we'll have dinner at the Wilds, because the Wilds they'll still see places that you can stay as well. But they do have a dining, and Austin could speak to that much more detailed than I can. But I think that we're going to try and do a combination of that, get together, reminisce on sort of the Wilds events, but then also for the people that are interested, because I think a lot of the trails that we run are probably within an hour of the Wilds. So we might take a group or 2 or 3, depending upon how many are there, down to Vinton County and show them some of those trails as well.
When is this potentially occurring?
You know what? I'm not the minutia guy on that. Chris is, but I think that I know that he has talked to some serious dates. I know, in fact, talked with you, Austin, about some. So we're excited about getting that rolling and putting it on the calendar and doing it. We really are.
Please tell me it's not in like late September or early October.
I don't have an answer.
Okay.
I don't think it is, though.
Okay, no. Good. Only because there's a lot of other events going on, and especially in the Rover community around that time.
I know, there really are.
Is there a general time you can tell us?
End of the summer.
End of summer. Cool.
The event, yeah.
Yep.
Certainly keep us posted. And
absolutely.
If not to promote, John and I might come over and check it out.
And he has to exit 163 or whatever it was.
I might actually make
my
it this
truck
time.
can.
I'll come get you.
Oh, good. Thank you, Rick. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Now, I do have to ask John, was this the trip that you learned about the higher mileage AAA club?
That was the trip that got me into the secret AAA 200-mile towing. Your normal AAA, if you have the unlimited AAA, it's like unlimited AAA plus, whatever. You get one tow for 100 miles. And my buddy lived, I got
96 miles.
Thank you, Harold, for the recollection. My buddy lived in Cannonsburg, PA, which was 96 miles from where we were. And then I had to get it towed the next day from there to Harold's shop, which was in Latrobe, PA. And so that worked out. And then a week later, I get a message from AAA for another $50 or whatever it is. You can get one 200-mile-an-hour tow a year on top of your normal membership. So I now am AAA plus superior member, black card, something. I don't know what it's called.
Have you ever used it since that event?
I've not had to use the 200-mile tow, but I have had to use AAA for a Land Rover, but it was Oxford. It was not my Land Rover. It was Oxford. If you're not familiar with Oxford, it was the truck that participated in the first Overland.
You can Google that on your own time.
Yes, we have 2 podcasts to talk all about it. Actually, more than 2 podcasts talking about first Overland.
Much more than 2 with Oxford content, but we have a 2-parter on Oxford itself when it first reappeared on the scene.
Rick and Austin, this has been a wonderful conversation, learning about the Green Oval Guild, the GOG, I guess we'll now call it. Really appreciate you guys coming on, especially living here in Pennsylvania, in Western Pennsylvania. I've heard about it, never really connected with you guys for reasons that we discussed. And it's great to have you guys on the podcast.
I have interfaced with them, but that's really by the act of leaving you behind.
That's true. So thanks for coming on the podcast and talking about the 20th anniversary of the Green Oval Guild. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Austin.
Thank you very much.
Very welcome. Thank you guys for the opportunity. I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. It's always good talking Land Rovers with other Land Rover fanatics, or I don't know what you would call you guys, but you're something.
Enthusiasts is usually the word. I think is a nice word.
We are something, that's for sure.
Maniacs.
Maniacs, sure. Fanatics, maniacs. Fan comes from fanatic. Yeah. Where can folks find you on the internet?
Social media, we have a Facebook page that is just Green Oval Guild on the Facebook page. On the Instagram, which is the site that I run, it's green_oval_guild is the Instagram. And we have reels and posts almost every single day there. And in fact, usually at 6 a.m. So to be specific. But so those are probably the 2 places they can find us. You can direct message me on that Instagram site, or you can direct message myself or Chris on the Facebook site as well. It's a private site. It's amazing the level of spam. I'm trying to think of a nice word to say. I can't think of a nice word to say. The people that get on some of these groups and hack in and do whatever they do. So we've really cracked down on a lot of that to make it just focused on Land Rover.
It can be very difficult to moderate any group like that is very difficult. And Austin, where can folks find you? I assume at the dealership, right?
Yes, and you can always find us at the dealership at LandRoverEaston.com, as well as on Land Rover Easton's Instagram page.
And you're now in Pennsylvania, right?
So yes, Germain Motor Company is part of North Hills Land Rover and South Hills Land Rover as well. So you can just tow it to us next time. I think we'll do your daisy chain.
Okay, good to know. I appreciate that. That's hopefully we won't need that, but that's good to hear. Yeah, I got a notice about a month ago that Land Rover North Hills, and there's Land Rover South Hills. We have 3 Land Rover dealerships in the Pittsburgh area. Those 2 were owned by Ray Hall. Now it's owned by you guys. Great.
Absolutely. And that's it because of Ranger Rick and those type of guys getting me involved in Land Rover at a young age in my tenure. It made me realize how passionate and exciting that brand is. So I'm happy to be a part of it.
Then maybe I can use this as a point of personal privilege. Maybe we can get the Fort Pitt Land Rover group to do some events with you.
Love that.
All
Absolutely.
Right. There we go. Harold, we might be able to get the club back together.
Really?
Yes. We're going to have to travel, though, a little further than Monroeville.
Yeah, we have to get past exit 169. That's for sure.
If you ever find an opportunity to move from the hills to the mountains, Vermont does not have any Land Rover dealer. So,
underserved territory.
That sounds like an opportunity.
Yeah. Fun fact, only 2 states in the U.S. that don't have Land Rover dealerships are Montana and Vermont.
Both with active club scene.
How many Subaru dealerships do you have in Vermont?
I don't think I can count.
How many roads intersect each other?
5.
Gentlemen, we really appreciate it. This was a great conversation. Thanks for coming on the podcast again. And go GOG. No? Okay. Thanks again.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed show number 147 for June of 2025. Thanks to our guests this month, Rick and Austin of the Green Oval Guild.
The GOG.
And once we know more about the Gogala, their GOG we'll certainly pass that information along. And yes, for my fellow Anarch members that are listening, I did ask them about joining an ARC. I did ask them about that. And also thanks to Pax for his continued production support, making us sound well, good, better. I don't know.
Listenable?
Listenable. Don't know about the listenable part. I think that's on us. Maybe technically listenable.
Hearable?
Hearable. Okay. I'll take that. Hearable. And thanks to Harold and Dixon for joining us this month.
Yeah, no thanks to Morgan because he's not here.
Where are you, Dixon?
I am in New Jersey right now.
Okay.
Been down here paying a visit to various archives and so on, and generating more information and knowledge for the newsletter.
And wrenching in your local shop.
Yes. There are
any
a couple
progress on
projects
your
down
fleet?
here. Not this week. There still are the pair of 101s and the pair of 80 inches to be addressed, but that will be coming.
Any Placid Lassie updates we should know about?
Placid Lassie will be in Geneseo in the middle of July. It'll be at Oshkosh for EAA. And actually, near the Cuyahoga Bunch, it'll be dropping paratroopers Coneo for the D-Day invasion landings recreation that they have in mid-August. So maybe we'll have some Land Rovers to show up and visit all the Jeeps and so on that will be there.
Shout out to DJ. DJ, get on it.
That's right. Just doing research. Got to keep the newsletter getting larger. It's already larger than you're willing to read, John.
That is true. That's very, very true. That's very true. I think, I hear these days you can get AI to read to you and turn into kind of a podcast. Maybe that's what I should do so I can actually read the publications.
Maybe we should just rename the newsletter the TLDR.
Ooh.
That's true.
There you go. TLDR, JLR.
It's averaged over 56 pages per month for over a year. Surely you do go through the for sale section. That's 14 plus pages of series vehicles for sale in North America. And John, you're going to have to look in July. There's a Freelander there.
I'm good, brother. I am good.
Just what John needs, another Freelander.
After seeing what happened with Rover Ball, you know what? I'm good. I'm sticking with the LR3. I like that a lot. That's nice. It's in my wheelhouse.
So you're finally admitting that the Freelander is undesirable?
No. It's still mighty. It's still the mightiest Land Rover. Just the North American one maybe isn't up
the mighty comes from the amount of pushing you have to do?
Yes, that's right. That's it.
Does this mean, John, you're going to be considering an 80-inch?
I would have no problem owning a Series 1. Yes. Here I am. That's what I'm focused on right now. We're focused on this. There's only so many things one can focus on. That would take away from the podcast. How about that?
Oh, okay. We'll give you that for now.
Got out of that one, folks. We post a new podcast at the end of every month. Our website, CentreSteer.com, has all our shows to listen to and for show notes with links to the stories we discussed in today's podcast. So if you're interested in more about the Defender Trophy, go out and check out the show notes. You can directly support the podcast at patreon.com/CentreSteer. There's also a link to Patreon from our website. You can buy us a t-shirt, sticker, or even buy us a tea. Thanks again, Bob. Visit our website for all those details. Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear from you and what you're up to in your Land Rover.
On behalf of 75% of the entire crew here at the CentreSteer podcast, I'd like to thank you all for listening today. We know you have a choice when it comes to your podcasting content, and we do appreciate your choosing us. Please take a moment to look around you for any personal items you may be leaving behind, especially in the overhead bins. Remember, some items may have shifted during the show. Please watch your step as you limp off the highway at exit 169. And you may now resume your important things.
Old Land Rovers continue to hold a strange power over otherwise rational people. It's like they're afraid that if they stop breaking down, they'll lose their heritage. It's about preserving something bigger than the truck. It's heritage, bonding, and personality over perfection. And really, that's the sell. You could buy something more reliable, but where is the soul in that?